All right, everyone. Welcome back to the Rich Mind Podcast. Today, we're going to dive into more of the WOOP portion of trying to develop skills and develop goals and achieving greater things in your life. I've got Greg Junge here again with us today. So, what we're going to do today? If you didn't listen to the last episode, I highly recommend you go listen to that one as well. So you're probably thinking, "WOOP, what in the world is that?" Well, that's what we talked about last time. It's another goal setting process that you can implement for yourself that is relatively simple to do, but at the same time, it's very effective as well. And so today I'm going to share a little bit more of even a real life story pertaining to the podcast and how I've implemented a lot of these strategies within that WOOP concept to number one, build out the podcast, build out the brand as far as I've done it to this point. Obviously, I've got a long ways to go as far as what I see and that vision I have for myself moving forward. But I thought it'd be a lot of fun. Greg kind of had this idea of how about I interview you from a standpoint of kind of what your thoughts were as you were building out the podcast. And I said, yeah, that sounds fantastic. And it correlates right along with what we just discussed in the previous episode. So if you're looking to potentially build a podcast, build a brand, if you've got a big goal that you've got for yourself and you don't know exactly where to go and how to do it, yeah, hopefully today's conversation will help give you some encouragement to, number one, step into it, take some action. That's part of that peak framework for us is the A in the peak framework is action, and it's inspired action. And we're going to talk about that a lot here today. So anyways, excited where you're going to take this one, Greg. We talked about we don't have a lot of notes for this episode, but at the same time, yeah, the back and forth will be a lot of fun. Hopefully you'll be able to pull out some nuggets of wisdom out of me as far as what I've been able to learn 2 years into the podcast and 230-ish episodes. It's hard to believe looking back on it now how far it's come, and it's been a lot of fun, and you've been a big part of that as well. So anyways, I'll turn it over to you, man. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, first off, congratulations. Obviously, I don't know the exact stat, but I know a lot of podcasts, they last, 5 episodes or 10 episodes. And then people quickly realize, oh, this is a lot of work. I have to do this every day or every week or whatever that consistency and persistency looks like. So to you for just remaining, consistent on, 2+ years. You said 200 plus episodes. So yeah, so I guess let's start with, why did you start this podcast in the first place?
So the W in the WOOP concept is your wish and your desire. What do I truly want? So when I was first sitting with this idea, I've had this idea for the podcast for at least 2 or 3 years. So we're just crossing over the 2 year time frame as far as when I launched it, but I probably have had this idea for it for at least 12 months before that. So at least a year before that. So the idea though was I wanted to share ideas, concepts, wisdoms of things that I had never heard of prior to my stepping into personal development, financial education. And I wanted to begin starting giving that back as much as I possibly could. So it almost has become like a video slash audio library or diary of what I've become up to this point. I want it to be this thing, this digital thing that at some point in the future, I'm not going to be here forever, but at some point, I want someone within the lineage of the Wilson name to be able to look back on where they've come from. I've made comments in the past where I wish I would know more about my family, where we've come from, the struggles even that we've gone through. Why do we believe certain things? That's been a lot of my journey. As I began to question a lot of the beliefs and the thoughts and the way I was raised, and when I began to push back and question a lot of those things, it set me down rabbit trails and journeys of discovery for myself. Now I want to, there again, leave this footprint for folks to realize, okay, if they're challenging their beliefs, why did Randy Wilson back in 2025 believe certain ways, which has led me to be this way? I want it for somebody. I can only imagine what it would be like if I could hear my grandfather or my great grandfather or my great great grandfather speak to me like we're speaking today. Can you imagine that? And so I just get excited thinking about it. I actually get chills thinking about it. So that was kind of really the big piece of the why. I've gotten myself to a point where it's so, everybody talks about net worth and millions and whatever gazillions. I'm not going to claim that I've got all that, but I've got some success. I've gone from a very negative mindset to a family that's been okay or was okay to I've got one of the greatest relationships now with my family, with myself, for my own personal development. I've discovered some things from a financial standpoint. I've been able to go from a severely negative net worth to, I've built some wealth for myself. And so I felt like I wanted to start giving back. And with that came the Rich Mind podcast, which, so in first week of April 2023 was when I first launched that. And 2 years later, we are still going, which I'm super excited for, which that'll be part of the discussion we have here today as far as how I've been able to do that as well. So hopefully that answered your question. Please ask more. I love it.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm going to jump around on the WOOP framework here a little bit, but yeah, you mentioned, part of the WOOP framework is the second O is obstacle. It's always what can get in your way, what might get in your way, what might make you stop doing the podcast. And I know we've talked about patterns in the past, and I think a lot of entrepreneurs and a lot of people listening to this podcast can probably relate to the next statement I'm going to make, but we have a tendency of maybe starting and then stopping something. You start a business, it doesn't go the way you'd like, or the expectations are not what you thought they were going to be. So then you kind of pivot, you stop. You've said on this podcast that you've followed that pattern of stopping and starting and starting and stopping. So what made the podcast different that you haven't stopped it yet, that you're just crushing through it and you're going 2 years plus and 2 years strong and with no end in sight?
Yeah, with two more, 20 more. Yeah, many more to come. We were talking about that before we hit record here today. So what I can honestly say is that this is the discovery a few episodes ago when I discovered what my core wounds were, when I really unpacked this pattern that I had set for myself. So I was doing it unconsciously, meaning I would start and stop things all the time unconsciously. So every time I would get into an uncomfortable situation, whether it could be anything. It could be a sales position at a job. It could have been a relationship with somebody else. My tendency was to always just shut it down. It was always easier in the moment for me to walk away and get back into my little shell, my little comfort zone that I built for myself over 40 plus years of life. But when I realized and I discovered that that was happening, when I started to see it and feel it in real time, that allowed me then to take control. So that was part of that process between that. So coming out of COVID, so coming out of 2020, I started making different decisions for myself that I was not going to allow myself to do that anymore, period. I talk a lot about dedicated decisions on the podcast. And that was one thing that I was good at before. I was good at making decisions, but I wasn't good at making dedicated decisions. And so I started to make myself, so instead of thinking or allowing myself to say, I want to do XYZ, or I think I can do this, or I think I can do that. Instead of accepting that as being true, I started forcing myself to not allow goals, dreams to be, if I wasn't willing and able to be committed, period, to the end, to see it through, then I wasn't going to allow myself to continue to go down this path of stopping, literally stopping midstream. I would get started with a process. So just to kind of maybe put this a little bit more in perspective, I have had multiple different types of businesses, very similar to what the Rich Mind podcast is now. So back, it was called Your Focused Vision, was the first vision that I had for myself, this getting out there on the internet, recording videos, just like what we're doing today. And I allowed myself to shut it down based on some negativity, thoughts that I was having, whether or not it was challenging. So I decommitted back then and I shut it down. So with that said, through that experience, I've made myself, I can't stop. I just keep telling myself, I can't stop. I have to keep going no matter what. Now, what I will say is that I have pivoted many times. So even within this podcast, within 2 years of this podcast, I've pivoted, let's say, pretty severely, meaning like big changes, at least 3 times. One of them was the last one we just did, was bringing you on as a co-host here of the podcast. Each one of those pivots has been fantastic, meaning it's launched me into a different vision of what I think it can become because I haven't stopped. So the statistic that you were talking about earlier, so I believe it's 5 or 8 episodes. I think think the statistics, if I have it right, so people can check me if you want and tell me I'm wrong, it doesn't matter. But the point being is that believe it's like 90% of podcasts, people that launch out, don't get past episode, I think it's 5 or 8, something like that, less than 10. And then less than 90% more, so less than 10% of that remaining 10% get to episode 50.
Hmm.
So it's like a very, very small window just to get out the gate and get yourself going, start building some momentum. So I've promised myself that I would not stop. And so how I've done that then is I've kept that commitment to myself, but then I've also shared that with my wife. She is a very big cheerleader for me. So she's pushing me this time. She has seen my tendencies in the past. And I keep telling her, babe, just don't let me quit. I just can't stop. I just have to keep going. And she will tell me that a lot of times. So even when I don't feel like hitting record, uh, just having that discipline to step into it, knowing that it will work itself out. It always will, meaning I know that it will. I'm confident that it will this time if I just keep going. So hopefully that answered your question. That was, I love, sharing these types of stories, right? As far as where we've been, trying to articulate it here today the best I possibly can. So
Yeah, it sounds like one of the concepts that we've hit on in the past on this episode or on this podcast is being, interested versus being committed. And I think you said committed, I don't know how many times right there. So you're definitely, you're definitely committed.
I love it.
Yeah, you're definitely committed because, like you said in the past, when you're interested in something and it doesn't necessarily go the way you want it to go, it's easy to fold up shop. And then that's how you know if you're interested. But if you're committed, you just see it as a challenge or a roadblock that you have to get around or overcome. And then you keep on going. Even like you said, you pivoted 2 or 3 times within your podcast, but the podcast is still going and you're still doing it every week. You have that discipline, and we talked about that in the last episode. It's just doing things that you don't want to do them emotionally, but logically you need to get it done. You're an adult, just get it done and move it forward. So are there days where you feel maybe a little bit less disciplined, or you're like, I'm not sure I want to record today, but I know I need to do this because I'm so committed to the outcome and showing up every day?
Yes. So the recording piece is pretty easy, especially now that I've brought you on here with me, Greg, because it's fun. This is fun for me. The back and forth, being creative. One thing about myself, I just love being creative. I love. I don't necessarily articulate things great every time with the way I speak. Sometimes I fumble with my words. Sometimes I don't quite get my thoughts out exactly the way I want them. But as far as being artistic and being creative, I just love that process. So doing this with you has been so much fun. So the recording is definitely better now than when I was doing solo episodes over the last year. So let's say from episode 100 to 200, I did a lot of solo episodes. Those are fine, but it's not as much fun. So where I do struggle with even the process still today is the production of the podcast. I still do everything in house. So everything you hear, everything you see, minus Greg, you're helping me with creating some blog posts and that type of thing. But everything else you see from the standpoint of the podcast, I do them myself. So the editing process is a little mundane. I mean, I listen and re-listen to an episode probably 5 times total from when it gets recorded. So obviously I'm listening to myself talking now, and then I'm going to listen to it multiple times through the editing process. And then I'll even listen to it on the day of the launch when it launches as well, just to kind of make sure that it comes through clearly for the end user. So I will say that that's probably right now the biggest challenge that I have is that I still have days where I come across where I have a deadline. So we launch on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So I have a deadline that I've got to have things done from a YouTube standpoint, the thumbnails, the images, all of that stuff has to happen before Tuesday morning. And I launch anywhere between 4 a.m. and 5 a.m. those mornings. So my deadline is literally on Monday. So we are recording on this one as of we're on Thursday today. So I know in my mind that I've got to get 2 episodes created and produced. I try to do them both at the same time before Monday. So then it's like, okay, when am I honestly, so I'm like sitting here thinking about it right now. So, okay, when am I going to do that? There's things I still want to do, hang out with the wife, do things around the house, whatever, but I still need to get those things done. having that deadline, having that like certain time that I have to have it done, that gives me motivation. So by Saturday, no later than Sunday afternoon, I'm like, it's not desperate's not the right word, but I'm definitely feeling feeling the pressure of getting it done, because I've not missed an episode, or I've not missed a week. I might have had one episode versus, two or three, but I've never missed a week now in 2 years. And so that's my commitment. I will at least produce and create and launch at least one episode per week moving forward, period. That's my goal. And so I feel that pressure, but it doesn't make it any more enjoyable. So then I just step into it. I just have to make it happen. There's certain things that you have to continue to do, whether you like them or not. And that's part of that discipline piece. Now, I've used tools. I've talked about AI in the past. There are so many different tools nowadays that help me through the process. Even over the last 2 years, it's gotten a lot easier than it was 2 years ago. But at the same time, yeah, I still struggle every now and then with sitting there on a Saturday afternoon, and I enjoy this I enjoy watching golf too. So I just enjoy watching sports. So a Saturday afternoon, something's on, doesn't matter what sport it is, but man, I need to turn that off, open this computer and get editing, because that's the longest part of the process of getting this completed. So once again, hopefully that answered your question well.
Yeah, definitely. I guess my next question was, and this is one that I asked you, I think, on the last episode regarding health. But yeah, so you've been podcasting for right around 2 years. Has your identity changed as far as like how you view yourself? Like, do you see yourself like, oh yeah, I'm a podcaster 100%? Or what's your identity around podcasting, I guess is the question.
That's funny, because I've had so people, just when you're out and about, people are like, what do you do?
Right.
Yeah. So I get that every now and then. And I've had to get comfortable saying that. Yeah. I'll just tell people I podcast. I'm a podcaster, because that's my full-time job. I watch Rowan. The other part of my time is I'm watching my grandson, Rowan. And so I don't have a job per se. So yeah, I'm a podcaster. I've had to step into that, because then it's still interesting. Some people don't really realize what a podcast really is. That's still interesting to me. I've been consuming podcasts for a long time.
Mhm.
So yeah, so I have to describe to them what it is, give them a little bit of feedback on what the Rich Mind podcast is all about. But yeah, I've had to step into owning and being okay with, yeah, I'm a content creator. As I mentioned, I'm a creative person. I love being creative. And so, yeah, it allows me then to kind of scratch that itch of that creativity within myself. But yeah, to step into it and own it when you're talking to folks, just because it's not the mainstream. I've shared in the past, as far as I think most of my life, I try to be as contrarian as possible. So if people are going right, I try to go left. So when I think about being a podcaster, I think of it being not mainstream. There's very few people out there that can say that they've got their own podcast. Now, I encourage people to get a podcast. They need to start one. It's not that difficult to do. If I can do it, you could do it. You just need to make a dedicated decision. We've already done that before, or talked about that here today. But yeah, it's a great thing. It's boosted my ability then to speak, like the confidence to hit record here today. It's like I don't even have to think about it anymore. I've gone through the reps of multiple times, the skills that I've built because of it, the editing, the marketing, the branding, so many different steps going along with creating it. It's really built that muscle for myself to really step into and owning the fact that, yeah, I'm a podcaster. It's what I do. I love it. That's a great question.
Yeah, and I love the fact that you're taking away the skills that you've, learned and created for yourself. I mean, you can literally turn around and teach somebody how to start a podcast, edit, brand. And people charge for these services, so they're not giving it away for free. Is that something you've ever thought about? Is putting together a package of how to start a podcast and helping others launch and get over not only the fear but also the logical steps of editing and this platform and all the logistics of launching.
Love that question. So the short answer to that is yes. Now I'll get into the long part of it now. So the yes, meaning what I've learned through my journey of entrepreneurship and trying to build a business, that type of thing, is that people will pay for, or are interested in, they don't even need to pay, but they're interested in getting a result. So I was always hesitant to talk about or even offer different types of services or even helping or coaching folks with building a podcast until I was able to get a result for myself. I feel like, yes, 2 years in, 230 to 40 episodes in so far, based on up until this episode releases. Yeah, I've gotten a result. We're actually in the top 5% of all podcasts worldwide. I believe we're doing really well. We're building an audience literally that's worldwide. I did the last count. We've had 85, maybe 90 countries of folks that have listened to us, which is, I mean, that's just super cool. I mean, just thinking about that we're sharing the message literally worldwide. That's just super neat. So to answer your question, yes, I would love to begin helping people do this. It's not as difficult as it might appear. There are definitely different steps. There's different things that I would have done for even for myself that would have definitely made it a lot more smooth than it was for me when I first got started. You can do it on your own. You can hire some of these processes out, but the software, where do you host it? How do you brand it? How do you get it to all the different platforms? How do you create the thumbnails? Where do you come up with the titles? How do you get the descriptions? All of those types of things, even building out a website. So we've built out a website that's specifically for the Rich Mind brand. How do you build out that website and create content for that? Yeah. So now that I've done all those things, yeah, I would love to start helping folks. So yeah, we'll see if people might be interested. And if any of you out there today are interested, don't hesitate to reach out to Greg or I. You can hit us up at info@richmind.co and ask as many questions as you want. I'll try to be as helpful as I possibly can. Maybe we can jump on a call and I can share with you some of the software that I use and some of the processes that I've set up to get to where we are here today. So yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I know you and I have talked about in the past of, doing things yourself, the pros and cons of that, and then also paying for somebody else's expertise who has been down that road. They can obviously provide you shortcuts, things to do, things to avoid, which I think is probably more important. To learn from somebody else's mistakes and not actually making those mistakes is usually worth the price of admission. But yeah, like Randy said, if anybody's interested in learning about how to start a podcast, what that looks like, even the fear of looking at the microphone, what do I talk about? Are people going to listen? That all goes along with personal development and mindset, and that is right up this podcast's alley. Specifically, Randy with all the technical information that he knows about starting a podcast, the back end, the front end. So yeah, reach out to us if you want to ask Randy specific questions, and we can just kind of go from there. But I really wanted to put that service out to the world, like you said, who's listening, because I know there's people out there that are thinking about launching a podcast. Like you said, it took you 12 months before launching to
Right.
really
A lot of
go,
planning,
a lot of
thinking through.
planning,
Yeah.
going back and forth in your head of, oh, do I want to do this? Am I good enough? That kind of thing. So if you are in that mind space, then definitely reach out to us at info@richmind.co and just ask Randy questions. He's more than happy to to give that time over to you guys.
That's absolutely true. Yeah. So that's where I just want to help. So I want to help folks get to where we are here today. So I'm not anywhere near where I want to be from a personal standpoint, I just want to get good at the craft of podcasting as well. I want to get good at it to the point where it just feels good. You feel confident, show up on camera, you don't fumble as much. It looks good, sounds good. You just want to do the process well. So yeah, you just take some courage, right? None of this, we wouldn't be having this conversation today had I not done the work on myself from a personal development standpoint. I can't stress that enough. That if you're not in the right positive mindset and the commitment level, like you're committed 100%, you're all in, I promise you, you're going to set yourself up for some disappointment. And I don't want that for you either. But if you know for sure that this is something that you want to do, like it's something that you almost have to do, I promise you, you can do it. You don't need, so I see now that I'm a podcaster, like you just asked me about my identity. I'm a podcaster. So I'm seeing people talk about their podcast, or you see the back end of what they're using and what they're doing. I will tell you, you don't need all of that stuff. Now, can you use it? Can you, all the different, so I have a decent mic. and I've got, a good camera, 4K camera. The software I'm using is Riverside. There's a link in the show notes about Riverside, which is what I would highly recommend you use. That's made my life so much better than just using Zoom that's what I used when I first got started. But moving over to Riverside has made a huge difference. But anyways, the point being is that you don't need as many things as you might think up front based on what you're seeing out there in the marketplace, whether it's on social media, those types of things. So yeah, if I can help you shorten and flatten that curve of idea to getting launched, that's the whole point. You just need to get launched, pick a date. I picked my date 2 years ago, first week of April, 2023. And you just go to town. You just get it done. And yeah, I would love to help people. If there's any interest, right? I can also even create like a little report, little guide of the steps that I went through that might be helpful for you as you launch your brand, your vision, because it has nothing to do with me and the Rich Mind brand. It's what do you want to provide out there in the services and the communication and the teaching and the helping out there from your vision, your goal. And that's, that'd be a lot of fun for sure.
Yeah, and I think one of the things you mentioned was just practicing. You're constantly showing up, and you said you want to get better as a podcaster, which is great because you always better is always just leveling up. There's never like I'm at the top and that's it. It's always how can I improve. But I would want to encourage our listeners to just start because I was very afraid to hop on here as well because I'm not the most articulate. I stumble and I mumble, and that's okay because that's just me. That's the way I am, and practice is gonna make progress, and it's gonna make me better. But am I ever gonna be like a Bob Costas where I can just use those words and it flows and it sounds so good? Probably not. But I can improve my skills and just get to a better version of myself when I'm behind the mic, and that's totally fine. So maybe can you talk a little bit more about just like consistency, practicing, and just putting in that work for that compound effect?
Yeah, I can. So when I first launched, it's never been about making money for me on the podcast. Now, would I love to help folks and maybe create some products and services based on the podcast? Sure, of course. Moving forward, after I've gotten this result, that would be something I'd be interested in. But that's never been the outcome that I was looking for. I was always looking for a creative outlet. As I mentioned, I'm a very creative person. So I wanted to get better at the process of even telling stories. I know based on my experiences, the growth that I've done for myself, the people that have the ability to share stories well. We've mentioned a friend of ours, Dan Armstrong, he's like got the gift of painting pictures in your mind with words. I want to do that as best that I possibly can. I want to get that good, or, I want to continue to strive to be that good at that process. So every time I have the ability to hop on here on camera and share a story, I'm trying to improve that process. I want to try to say things and share things that will resonate with you, the audience, knowing that literally I'm staring at this black camera looking right back at me. I don't know who's listening. I don't know when they're listening. I don't know, I don't know any of those things. But if I can get good at the craft of sharing stories, sharing a message that will resonate with other people, that can help them the way that the greats have helped me. I talk about Earl Nightingale, Jim Rohn. Those gentlemen have been gone for several years, but they still speak to me every day because I can refer back to the audio programs that I listen to them. If I can do that for somebody else, that's what I'm here for. That's what I want to do. Now, ultimately, so in my mind, I'm doing it for my family. I'm thinking about my grandchildren and like legacy, the piece out further than that. But in reality, I'm trying to do that for folks that are listening to us today. And so that keeps me going. That keeps me wanting to get better. I listen to other folks' podcasts and I'll pick up on, okay, I liked how they did this. I'm not a fan of that. One thing with the podcast, one of the pivots I made is I've taken out the intro and I've actually changed the outro. Meaning I've realized, because when I do this myself, is that when I'm listening to somebody else's podcast and it instantly goes into their intro, what's the first thing I do? I skip it.
Yep.
I don't even listen to it. I hit the little fast forward button, the 30-second fast forward button, and it skips it because everybody's intro is about 30 seconds and mine was too. So what I've done is I've created a little 5-second clip at the very beginning that just introduces the podcast, and that's it. And then we get right into talking. That was something that I've discovered based on wanting to get better at podcasting, at producing. Now, is that making an impact out there in the world? I don't know. But at the same time, it makes me feel better that ours, the Rich Mind podcast, is just a little bit different than everybody else's. And I just love that. I love trying to figure out little tweaks. Try this, try that, try this software, and I'll give it a shot and see if it makes it any better. If not, then I'll just pivot and try something else. It's been fun to think that it's been 2 years now, and a couple hundred episodes, and obviously we've met people. I've interviewed people from all over the world. That's been a lot of fun. We might go back into the process of interviewing people again in the future. I don't know yet. We haven't discussed that 100% yet. But the point is that it's made me grow. I've had to grow into being this person. Yeah, it's just a lot of fun. So I just encourage folks to step into it. Find out your why. Discover what your why is first. What are you doing it for? If it's just to make a buck, this is probably not for you. Now, if it's to talk about a product or service that you have to offer in the marketplace, I think this is a great marketing tool. But if you're simply wanting to start a podcast to make money, I think you're setting yourself up for disappointment, because to me, that's not what this is about. Could it be in the future? Sure. Do I hope it to be in the future? Yeah, if it does, great. If it doesn't, I'm not going to stop doing it. That's just been my commitment. But just make sure you're aligned first with what you want to do it for. What's the big picture you're trying to accomplish? And that will help you stay disciplined when you're going to run into these challenging days. There's days that I still, I don't necessarily want to do it all the time, but it keeps me moving forward, keeps me showing up. Having this co-host, Greg as my co-host, it helps me. So I commit to him. We pick dates in the future. When are we going to show up? Then we have to have an idea. What are we going to talk about? It just keeps me sharp. And so, yeah, it's been a fun process.
Yeah, no, that's great. I love that answer. And then as we kind of like wind down a little bit here, is there anything else that you want to leave our listeners? I know I kind of, peppered you with a couple of questions here and there about just podcasting in general and your identity, but is there anything else you want to kind of leave our listenership with?
Probably the biggest takeaway is just don't quit. That's been the biggest learning that I've done here on the podcast. I was talking to, he's also a fellow podcaster, friend of ours, but he was through the holiday season. So people are busy. Should I, shouldn't I? I was talking to another gentleman. So some folks will do like seasons in their podcast. They'll do it 12 episodes, like almost like a television series, but then they'll take breaks. And I'm not saying that's right. I'm not saying that's wrong. You can make that decision if you decide to launch a podcast. But the thing that I shared with them that I just keep even telling myself all the time is that just don't quit. That's it. I think that's what I want to leave with everybody with today. Make the decision and just don't quit.
Yeah, I love it. Great way to end the podcast here. And I'm going to let you kind of take the podcast out because that's what you normally do.
That's kind of what I do, isn't it?
Yeah, that's more your realm than mine, but I really appreciate you answering all my random questions. Hopefully they tie it in together for our listenership here. And don't quit. I love that. That's the best way and best advice to kind of end this podcast. So I'll kind of hand it back over to you, Randy.
Love it. So folks, go out there and decide whether it's a podcast, whether it's a health goal, whether it's a financial goal, doesn't matter what it is. Get dedicated, get a dedicated decision. Choose that it's something that you're going to stick with no matter what, and just don't quit. Even when you have the challenging days, even when you have the times when you don't feel like doing it. That's been the biggest takeaway that I've had with launching and creating and producing and marketing and all of the things that come along with creating a podcast, is just don't quit. So I think, like you said, I think I'm just going to leave that with you here as we wrap this one up here today. So go out there, focus on being great. Share this with your family and friends. We're trying to obviously grow the Rich Mind podcast as far and as wide as we possibly can. But if you can help us with that, that would be fantastic. Go to your podcast platform of choice and leave us a review. We'd love to hear that and see that as well. Reach out to us at info@richmind.co with any questions, concerns, maybe topic ideas. We're always looking for different things that you're wanting to learn about that we can share, whether it's stories, different experiences, things that Greg and I have had, and we can help you bridge that gap from where you are now to this dream life in the future. We definitely want to help you do that as much as we possibly can. So go out there, focus on being great. Thank you for your time and attention today, and we look forward to coming back with the next episode again very soon. Until then, bye now.